December 18th, 2017. It was an ordinary winter day in the Gangnam district of Seoul. SHINee member Jonghyun stopped by a convenience store near the short-term rental apartment he was staying in around 12 p.m. in the Gangnam area. After buying a few items, he returned home. Later that day, Jonghyun's older sister, Kim Soram, began reading the messages she had received from him. These messages felt like a farewell. Even though the sentences did not explicitly say anything, what they conveyed was very different. The messages included expressions that meant a final goodbye and phrases like, "Please tell me I did well." His sister thought that this might be a cry for help. At 4:42 p.m., without waiting any longer, she called the police for help. Her instincts were telling her that this was not an ordinary situation. She felt that something was very wrong. As the time approached, 6 p.m., the teams arrived at the apartment. When the door was opened, they found Jonghyun unconscious on the floor. Immediate intervention was carried out and he was quickly taken to the hospital. The doctors did everything they could, but at around 6:32 p.m., it was announced that Jonghyun had passed away. This news deeply shook not only Korea, but also millions of people around the world. During the investigation at the scene, it was determined that burned charcoal briquettes were found in the apartment, and it was believed that he may have died due to inhaling toxic gas. At the request of his family, no autopsy was performed, and his death was declared as suicide. But this story was not limited to just that day. In fact, it was the final point of a struggle that had been going on for a long time. Shortly before his death, Jonghyun left a letter to his close friend, SHINee. In the letter, he talked about a long-standing depression. He described how he was internally collapsing, how this feeling was slowly consuming him, and that he could no longer cope with it. These sentences clearly revealed how deep of a struggle he had been facing. After receiving this message, SHINee tried not to leave him alone. They continued to stay in contact. However, in a statement made later, SHINee said that these efforts only delayed what happened but could not prevent it. But this story does not begin with just an ending. This story begins much earlier, with a child born in Seoul and his interest in music. Maybe some of you know him very well. Maybe you only know him as a K-pop idol who passed away, or maybe you've never even heard his name before. Today, I want to tell you about Jonghyun so that you don't remember him only for his death, but for how incredible of a person and how extraordinary of an artist he truly was. Because Jonghyun was so much more than just the 1 or 2 sentences written about him. Also, yesterday was his birthday. We're so glad he was born, and we're so grateful that we got to know him. So let's take a look at who this unique person really was. Kim Jong-hyun was born in Seoul, the capital of South Korea. During his childhood, his family struggled financially, and because of this, Jonghyun received social assistance during his school years. During middle school, he joined a school band and formed his first serious connection with the stage there. During this time, he wasn't just singing, but also trying to understand how music was created. At just 15 years old, he experienced a moment that would change his life. After performing at a festival with his school band, he was discovered by SM Entertainment. This was a turning point for him. At a very young age, he entered the K-pop system. Although this system may look bright and impressive from the outside, it is actually an intense and demanding process on the inside. Jonghyun became a part of this system at an age when he could still be considered a child. His education also went through a significant change during this time. After leaving high school, he transferred to the Seoul Institute of the Arts. Later, he graduated from the Department of Applied Music and did not stop his education there. He pursued a master's degree in film and music at Myeongji University. This showed that he was not only involved in music on stage but also academically. By 2008, Jonghyun was no longer just a trainee. On May 22, 2008, he officially debuted as a member of SHINee. The group stepped onto the stage with their mini-album Replay and quickly gained attention. Jonghyun stood out as one of the group's main vocalists. His powerful voice, his energy on stage, and his ability to convey emotion set him apart from others. But what set Jonghyun apart was not just his voice. Even at the beginning of his career, he showed that he didn't want to be just someone who sang songs. He started writing songs himself. In 2009, he wrote the lyrics for the group's song Juliet. This was not something commonly seen in the K-pop system at the time, because songs were usually prepared externally and given to groups. But Jonghyun had already begun breaking these boundaries. Over time, this side of him became even stronger. He didn't just write for his own group, but also for other artists. He composed music and collaborated with different names. It was known that he held copyrights for more than 40 songs in total. In 2014, he opened a new chapter in his career. He began working as a DJ on a radio program. What he did on this program was something almost never seen in the K-pop world. Listeners would send in their stories, and Jonghyun would turn those stories into songs live on air. In other words, he was an incredibly talented person who could write lyrics within minutes, and all of them were deeply impressive. In my opinion, what set Jonghyun apart from other idols at that time was that he was one of the first in the K-pop industry to openly talk about mental health. He didn't hide his depression, he expressed it in his interviews, his writings, and his songs. This was something very brave for that time, because in the K-pop world, a perfect image is usually presented. did. But instead of hiding his flaws and pain, he chose to share them. By the way, please go to YouTube and search for Jonghyun Hyeya and watch his performance. What I'm telling you here is important, yes, but I really want you to watch that performance. Only then will you truly understand how talented and unique Jonghyun was. Every time I watch it, my throat tightens and I'm deeply moved. Please watch it. Now I can continue. As Jonghyun's career progressed, he was no longer just a group member, but an artist trying to build his own identity. The year 2015 became a new beginning for him. On January 12th, he officially launched his solo career with the mini-album Base. One of the most notable things about his solo career was this. Jonghyun's music became more personal, darker, and more experimental. While the music he made with SHINee was more performance and pop-oriented, his solo work reflected his emotions much more openly. This showed that he was truly an artist who poured his inner world into his music. Throughout this period, Jonghyun continued to produce constantly. He didn't just release albums, but also gave concerts. However, Jonghyun's identity as an artist was not limited to music alone. He was also a writer. He wrote a book. This book was not a traditional novel. It contained short stories, essays, and poetic texts. One of the most important qualities that set Jonghyun apart from many other idols was that he stood out not only for his music but also for his stance on social issues. He never stayed silent about societal matters. He brought many of these issues to the public's attention and was often criticized for doing so. He supported a project aimed at providing free hygiene products to girls from low-income families, spoke out against unjust practices affecting the elderly and low-income individuals, addressed debates about the education system, and tried to raise awareness about international crises. Alongside all of this, there were also difficult moments in his life. In 2013, he was involved in a car accident where he broke his nose, which caused him to miss some promotional activities. During the same period, his private life was also subjected to intense media attention. His relationship was exposed through paparazzi coverage, which created significant pressure both for him and the other person involved. The couple eventually had to break up because they could not withstand this pressure. Jonghyun was not someone who hid his emotions. Especially during 2016 to 2017, he openly expressed that he was struggling internally. It is known that he spoke about depressive feelings in interviews. He shared that he sometimes felt inadequate and that these emotions were affecting him. In fact, one of the reasons behind these feelings was his father. Since childhood, he had a tense and distant relationship with him. In general, his childhood photos were always with his mother and his sister. His father never supported Jonghyun's music career and would constantly tell him that he would fail and that he was not talented in music. Perhaps this is why Jonghyun often felt insecure about his music and what he did and saw himself as inadequate. In one of his interviews, Jonghyun even said that he had forgotten his childhood, or at least tried very hard to forget it, because his past caused him pain. When Jonghyun passed away on December 18th, 2017, it was completely unexpected for both his fans and the entire world. This was truly a huge loss because Jonghyun was only 27 years old and was in one of the best periods of his career. In fact, he had performed at a concert just 8 days before his passing, and everything seemed normal. That's why everyone was truly shocked by this news. At his funeral, some of the biggest names in the industry were also there. BTS, IU, BOA, EXO, and many other artists came to say goodbye to him. At the funeral, his coffin was carried by his close friends and group members. After his death, a very important change began in the K-pop world. A topic that had previously not been discussed, or at least not openly expressed, became much more visible. Mental health. After him, people started talking about this issue more. The pressures artists face, the emotional burdens they carry, and the difficulties of the system began to be discussed more openly. If K-pop idols today can speak more openly about certain things, and if the industry has become somewhat softer compared to the past, one of the biggest reasons behind that is definitely Jonghyun. He helped people open their eyes to the realities of this system. After his passing, his songs re-entered the charts. Tracks like Lonely rose to the top again. His albums began to be listened to once more. Even the book he wrote was republished and became a bestseller. People returned to his work in an attempt to understand him. Shortly after his death, his final album, Poet Artist, was released. A foundation was established to support young artists in difficult situations, and the proceeds from this final album were donated to this foundation. One of the most remarkable and lesser-known details in his life is his song Moon, which was placed inside a capsule and sent to the moon in 2020 as part of Project Mora. This showed that his music reached not only the world but symbolically a much farther place. Jonghyun was truly a perfect artist. In one of his interviews, he said, "When time passes and I look back at my youth, it would be very shameful grateful if I had shown no interest in the contradictions of the world and made no effort to correct its wrongs, and I have never forgotten these words since I heard them. He could not bear the weight and cruelty of this world and left us. I hope he is very happy now. I feel very lucky to have known him. Happy birthday, Jonghyun, and I'm so glad you existed. We will always remember you with that perfect smile.